Thank you for joining us for this look at some of the best stories from KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Coming up, giant pandas are back in San Diego. Zoo staff update us on their return and when they'll be ready for guests. North County has a new bike park. See the space that will give BMX and mountain bike riders a safe place to ride. And the challenge of continuing care. Health experts tell us about the complexities for those who are housing insecure after a hospital stay. An empty lot in Encinitas is at the heart of a contentious debate over affordable housing. Most speakers at this week's City Council meeting opposed building housing on the site. But KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says the council voted to continue exploring it as an option.
To some, it's known as L7, the empty city-owned lot off of Quail Gardens Drive in Encinitas. It has a history of debate over what the city should use the space for.
And we began to advocate for 100% affordable community on L7 about 6 years ago.
Bob Kent and Lois Sunridge are with Keys for Home, a group advocating for more affordable housing in the city of Encinitas.
The people who work in Encinitas and keep the wheels running in Encinitas and make Encinitas what it is, that serve Encinitas, then have to go home outside of Encinitas are the people we want here.
Encinitas is already in compliance with the state for affordable housing, but they say additional housing will put the city ahead of the housing crisis. The proposed development could have 30 to 45 units and cost up to $17 million. The estimated city subsidy is up to $6 million.
We don't deny the need for affordable housing. We just think this is a really bad location and an inefficient use of public funds.
Dick Stern is a part of a group of nearby residents who think the lot would better serve as a park. They say Quail Gardens Drive already has several housing developments in the works, and another isn't needed.
There's a need for park space for all these residents that are going to be living here along Quail Gardens Drive, that are going to be in developments that are going to come in here in the next 4 to 6 years. And this is a narrow, 2-lane road that does not support the level of development that they're talking about.
People representing both sides of the issue were heard in Wednesday's City Council meeting before a vote on whether the city should study the site for affordable housing. Speakers opposing the project outnumbered those in favor, and the motion failed. But Encinitas Mayor Tony Kranz said affordable housing isn't off the table for the parcel.
I think we would all benefit, the community included, by having a conversation and taking a deep dive into these new laws and see if there's a way to achieve 45 plus affordable units in some other way than developing this site. That doesn't necessarily mean this site is going to go away as a potential housing site.
Kranz added that by starting a study of 30 to 45 units on L7, it could protect the site from a higher density development later on. A similar motion was passed and includes community education on affordable housing laws and discussion groups over the site's future development. A new task force will also be formed and will explore other locations for affordable housing. The task force will have 6 months before returning to council with their findings. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Tanya Thorne has been covering the homeless and housing issue extensively in North County. Her stories this week include a 2-part feature on Green Oak Ranch and Vista. A potential sale could jeopardize an RV park for low-income residents and a drug and alcohol recovery program. You can find that story at kpbs.org. Victims of the January 22nd floods in San Diego have to find a new place to stay on their own dime. Funding for the county's emergency temporary lodging program expired this month. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says some are already falling into homelessness.
This is my skincare. Okay, we all need skincare. These are my shoes, my slides.
Ashley Manzano isn't carrying much as she checks out of her family's room at the Comfort Inn in Chula Vista. She's been staying here for the past 5 months. On January 22nd, she was home with her grandmother when the downpour started. And the floodwaters started rising fast. She had to flee with her grandmother to her neighbor's roof. It was terrifying, and she's been struggling with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. It's hard just looking at what's left of her family home in Southcrest.
The walls are broken down, and that's about it. There's no drywall put up. It's just when you just empty out your whole house and the inside. So it still needs a lot of work. I know what FEMA provided my family. My mother said it's not enough.
Manzano was housing insecure before the floods. The stress of the past few months has taken a toll on her family relationships. So she's going to be couch surfing with a friend 100 miles north in Ontario while she figures out her next move.
So this is what it was a good home, just knowing you're safe. But I feel like we weren't really fully rested, especially people whose family members, they passed away. They're still, not having to cope with that because they still have duties to do at home.
The county government's $4.2 million for hotel vouchers are now spent. The San Diego City Council recently voted to provide another $3 million in emergency assistance for flood victims. But faced with a brutal and unforgiving housing market, some are falling through the cracks. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A San Diego County pilot program is trying to help people avoid homelessness by using monthly rental subsidies. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says they're expanding the program to include a second round of households.
When Fidel Sanchez retired 6 years ago after decades as a machinist, he felt ready to live within his means.
Cuando yo me retiré, mi ingreso con el retiro era suficiente para vivir. Pues no como rico, pero sí bien, más o menos. Pero empieza la pandemia. Entonces todo empezó a subir.
Sanchez lives in a one-bedroom apartment in University City. He says he started out paying $1,700 a month on rent there. At the time, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in San Diego was $1,950. 5 years later, he spends $2,700 a month on rent. In June, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment was $2,350. He's considered moving, but says there aren't many better options.
Me gusta este lugar porque es muy tranquilo. Ya he ido a otros lugares, Chula Vista, es decir, y realmente las rentas están muy iguales a esta zona. Entonces, ¿para qué me muevo?
Sanchez is one of more than 200 participants in San Diego County's rental subsidy pilot program, meant to help older adults stay in their homes and connect to county services. Before getting the subsidy, he says he had to ask his daughter for help paying rent. This spring, the county's program started sending $500 directly to his landlord each month.
No es tanta la presión que tengo ya de $500, porque tenía que buscarlos.
The county launched the rental subsidy pilot program in early 2023. It's now accepting applications for 160 more households. Participants must be at least 55 years old, pay more than half of their income on rent, and meet an income threshold.
The cost of housing continues to soar, and many of our seniors, older adults are really living on low and fixed incomes. And so what we found is they're really having to choose or being forced to choose between, paying rent, eating, buying medication. And, the data tells us that the older adults are really, representing the fastest growing age group of people that are experiencing homelessness in San Diego.
Nearly half of unhoused older adults surveyed for this year's point-in-time count were homeless for the first time. Jimenez says homelessness can happen for lots of reasons. Losing a spouse might mean a sudden loss of income. An unexpected medical event might bring a hefty bill with it.
They were with partners or with spouses, they were working, and then there's just some kind of an event or something that occurs.
Researchers surveyed thousands of homeless adults across the state in 2021 and 2022. Over and over, they heard that a little bit of financial help could have kept them in their homes.
Had they gotten $300 to $500 a month, had they gotten like a one-time payment of $5,000 to $10,000, or had they gotten something like a housing choice voucher, which paid the difference between 30% of their income and what their rent costs, it would have stabilized things and then allowed them to not have the downward spiral.
Kushel says that intervention helps both people and local governments that pay for social services.
If they can get into shelter, that's really costly. A lot don't get into shelter, but they're cycling in and out of our emergency department, our hospitals. They might need to go to a nursing home when they otherwise could have avoided it. So the truth of the matter is if we don't spend these small amounts of money, we're spending it on the back end, but for really bad outcomes.
In San Diego County, more than 1/3 of renters over 65 spend the majority of their income on rent. Sanchez is getting other types of assistance that help pay for food and cell phone bills. He and his wife have been on the waiting list for housing choice vouchers, also known as Section 8, for 4 years.
Pero no la han llamado. Dicen que más o menos el tiempo es de 8 a 10 años para que Sección 8 hable.
In the meantime, the Subsidy program is helping him stay in his apartment. County staff will connect him and other participants with services they qualify for during the 18-month program. But he says when it ends, he's not sure what he'll do next. If you think you qualify for the county's pilot program, you can fill out an application online. More information is available on our website, kpbs.org. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
And that is an example of the in-depth feature reporting done by the KPBS newsroom. It's all available on the KPBS YouTube page. Subscribe and get notified when new content is posted. It's also where we live stream KPBS Evening Edition weeknights at 5. When you're released from the hospital, it often means more recovery time at home. But what about people who have no permanent housing? Where can they recuperate? KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says that is the problem Scripps Health hospitals are facing, as the number of homeless patients that they treat has nearly doubled in 5 years.
Unfortunately, I got divorced, I got depressed, and I didn't want to stay in Phoenix anymore, so I flipped a coin and then landed in San Diego.
When Frank Surbe moved to San Diego in 2022, he had nowhere to stay.
I came off that Greyhound bus and saw all that tents. I'm like, what did I get myself into? I was thinking about, okay, I got $100 left in my pocket. I'm going to go back to Phoenix. But I gave it a chance.
Surbe, now 59, says he was struggling with alcoholism.
So I lost my job, my house, my car, my dog. I lost everything.
Surbe found shelter at Father Joe's Villages in downtown San Diego. It was at their health center he had a pain in his leg checked for the first time and discovered he had a tumor.
I had major surgery done on my leg, which they took a tumor out the size of a golf ball.
After surgery, he needed additional care. Melody Thomas directs patient care and case management at Scripps Mercy Hospital. She works to find unhoused patients recuperative care. She says without a place to heal properly, those requiring ongoing attention may find themselves back in the ER within days.
If you need to recuperate from the hospital and you are homeless or unsheltered, that is an option. Recuperative care is usually a higher medical need than what they could manage at a shelter bed.
Homeless individuals often seek emergency care for immediate needs, but are released when they are medically cleared, even if they require ongoing care. Thomas says last year, Scripps' 5 San Diego hospitals treated 22,227 homeless patients. This year, they're on track to double that number. State law requires hospitals to track and create discharge plans for homeless patients, connecting them to shelter options. Thomas says the challenge is the shortage of beds and difficulty accessing recuperative care programs.
That process does vary based on managed Medi-Cal. So how and when we can get authorization for that, specific bed, then determining the timeliness of getting the patient into the recuperative care bed is where you may have heard. That's, I think, where the opportunity is.
Some patients who need recuperative care may end up back on the street because there can be a lag between when a patient is released from the hospital and insurance approves it. Thomas says it's challenging to know how many people need recuperative care but don't get it. Some patients give up during the waiting process. Others need it but refuse it. After his surgery, Surbe recovered in the recuperative care program at Father Joe's Villages. The program has 28 beds, and patients are supported by on-site nurses. Jesse Casement connects clients to social services at Father Joe's Villages.
It's very different to heal in a tent or in a canyon or in the back seat of a car. And so we're able to offer a space like this that not only helps them with their physical healing, but with their mental health and just the relief from knowing that they're safe and can heal the way that they need to.
Survey recuperated in a clean and safe room shared with just one other person.
So I got a peace of mind every night since I've been here. I watch my TV on my tablet, and it's just very peaceful.
Survey can walk now and uses a cane only for stability after completing the 90-day program.
We have a very short time that we can work with them in recuperative care, and our case managers work very hard to help people exit to their next safe destination.
They also help with their finances and housing goals. Survey is waiting to hear whether he's been granted housing in a converted hotel room.
It's just a room, but it's me by myself, and I don't need nothing more than that.
Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
The city of San Diego has a new executive director for the Commission on Police Practices. KPBS reporter Scott Rodd says this is a big step for the oversight body that has struggled to get its footing in recent years.
The City Council unanimously approved Paul Parker as the next executive director of the Commission. He laid out his priorities during the council meeting.
And I look forward to the opportunity to assist this commission, to assist this council in holding law enforcement accountable to the community, increasing the community trust in law enforcement, but also increasing the safety to both the law enforcement and the community members.
Parker is well known in San Diego as an expert in police accountability. He previously led the county's Citizen Law Enforcement Review Board, but he resigned in frustration earlier this year after unsuccessfully pushing for stronger safety measures in county jails. Council members praised Parker's qualifications ahead of the appointment. Here's Councilman Raul Campillo.
He is uniquely qualified for this critical role here in San Diego. He's demonstrated steadfast commitment to accountability and transparency, and of course, building community trust.
In 2020, San Diego voters overwhelmingly approved creating the Commission on Police Practices. It's tasked with reviewing complaints against officers and launching independent investigations. But it took years for the City Council to appoint permanent members, and the Commission is still working out how it will investigate officers. Supporters believe Parker's appointment will help fast-track the Commission's oversight work. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
Sign up to our newsletters to get a list of our most popular stories delivered right into your inbox. And here are some from this week. In his State of the State speech, Governor Gavin Newsom warns that dark forces are threatening California. Following our community conversation on affordability, we have some resources to cope with San Diego's high cost of living, and a new bike park opens in San Marcos. We'll have that story a little bit later. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria visited China this week to celebrate a new generation of pandas coming to the San Diego Zoo. Katie Anastas says zoo visitors will still have to wait until later this summer to see the panda pair in person.
The two pandas are named Yun Chuan and Sing Bao. They'll be the first pandas to arrive in the U.S. in 21 years. Yun Chuan already has a connection to San Diego. His mother, Zhen Zhen, was born at the San Diego Zoo in 2007. The zoo describes Sing Bao as a, quote, gentle and witty introvert. Megan Owen is the vice president of conservation science with the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. She says Yun Chuan and Sing Bao won't be viewable to the public for several weeks after their arrival.
Once the pandas arrive in San Diego, they'll begin an acclimation period. That acclimation period is going to tell us how they're doing, how they're settling in, and then we'll be able to share an opening date with the public.
The zoo has renovated its panda habitat for the new residents. Owen says vertical structures and a hillside were inspired by the panda's mountain habitat in China.
Our giant panda habitat has gone through an absolute transformation. The size of the habitat is, I believe it's quadrupled, maybe even quintupled. It's enormous. And we've also incorporated a lot of topographic features that are just going to make for a very exciting and engaging habitat for the giant pandas.
The zoo says the decades-long partnership with the China Wildlife Conservation Association has helped improve the giant panda's status from endangered to vulnerable. A spokesperson from the National Zoo told NPR earlier this year that there are about 1,900 pandas in the wild and 800 in zoos. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
It's not just the zoo that's in the news this week. SeaWorld celebrated a year-long effort to bring a green sea turtle back to health after she was found floating in San Diego Bay. SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge shows us the celebration as Gigi returned home.
Gigi was released at the edge of San Diego Bay by SeaWorld staff who carried her in a sling, and she wasted no time getting into the water. The bay is Gigi's old home.
The bay, we chose this location because this is very close to where we rescued her.
Jenny Smith with SeaWorld Rescue points out that Gigi is missing her left front flipper, but she can still navigate just fine. She was rescued by marine biologists because she was floating on the surface in a way that looked like trouble.
She was very buoyant, and sea turtles need to dive to find their food source. So we took her in for x-rays, we took her in for a CT scan at the San Diego Zoo, and we found that she was just gassy.
The gas that was trapped in her intestinal tract was causing her buoyancy and making it hard to dive. Smith says they had several methods of treatment, which included taking her for a drive on a bumpy road. SeaWorld has 3 other sea turtles now in their care, one from San Diego Bay and 2 that lived in the open sea. SeaWorld's Nick Dinezzo says ailing sea turtles that are beached off the coast of Oregon sometimes end up at SeaWorld.
There's actually a really cool program called Turtles Fly Too. That's a partnership we have that they actually load turtles onto aircraft and fly them to places where they need to go. So they'll fly them down here for us to actually provide long-term rehabilitation and care.
San Diego Bay is home to a population of about 60 green sea turtles, and today one of them came home. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
There's a new place in North County for bikers to drop off, jump, and corner the berms. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Wynn says the badly needed park was years in the making.
Excitement is in the air.
I love it.
This is the region's newest bike park.
The step-up jumps on the Black Diamond sound and look really, really cool.
The 8-acre bike course at Bradley Park in San Marcos includes a pump track, a perimeter trail, and jump lines for all skill levels, from beginners to advanced.
We've worked for a long time to work on a location in North County for such an amenity.
Susie Murphy is the executive director for the San Diego Mountain Biking Association. She says planning for the park started in 2017 when the city found that some kids had built unsanctioned jump lines in a protected open space.
But of course, that's not really the way to go about it. So the city contacted us and actually contacted some of those kids and families directly about how we could engage on finding a real place for an official bike park in San Marcos.
The park is the first of its kind in North County. Previously, bikers would have to go to South Bay or Orange or Riverside counties for amenities like this.
3, 2, 1.
We anticipate several hundred to several thousand a day, depending on the time of year and depending on the weather, of course. But it's going to be a very popular amenity that we're happy to be able to provide, especially to our San Marcos residents.
San Marcos Parks and Rec Director Mark Olson says it's a great way for kids to get involved in recreational activities, especially now that school is over. But Zoe Primich, the incoming San Marcos High mountain bike team captain, is already eyeing the benefits of having the park right next door.
So we're thinking about doing the Kenda Cup and the Team Big Bear series, which is more enduro and downhill oriented. So with this bike park here, it's going to be really easy to practice. We're going to get more time to practice, and it's definitely going to help us.
Well, this is the first bike park to open in North County. It won't be the only one. 2 others are coming. One at Carlsbad Veteran Park is set to start construction in 2025, and one in Escondido is in the beginning stages, though funding has been approved. Alexander Wynn, KPBS News.
Closing out Black Music Month in the region is a festival highlighting local artists across multiple genres. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer has a preview of this weekend's San Diego Black Arts and Culture District Music Festival.
We live this art, me and my homie. Our only mission is to take you.
It will be a day filled with music, art, and culture.
I was chilling in the garden with Judas. I had no clue that he would do this.
In lyrical grooves, Kendrick Dial will be part of the show with the sound he calls spoken soul.
I mean, spoken word, it's soul, it's jazz, it's hip hop, it's all these elements of what we historically call black music. And so it's a gospel feeling into it. There's a message base.
The music festival is happening just outside of the Black Arts and Culture District in San Diego's Encanto neighborhood. The event's curated by Kamau Kenyatta, a Grammy Award-winning producer who teaches music at UC San Diego.
This is all San Diego talent.
Besides Kendrick Dial and Lyrical Groove, there will be live performances from other local artists like Deneen Wilburn, Geminelle, and Rebecca Jade.
We're going to hear, as I said, a neo-soul, spoken word, R&B. Of course, Deneen came from the church, St. Stephen's Church right up the hill, and Rebecca with her The World Traveler, bringing in her own original music, which has many, many influences.
Plus, there will be local food vendors, visual art displays, and cultural exhibits. Gaidi Finney is executive director of the San Diego African American Museum of Fine Arts, which oversees funding in the district. He says this is the first ever Black Arts and Culture District Music Festival and hopes it becomes an annual event.
It's really a tribute to Black Music Month, which is in June. And so we piggybacked on that to create this event.
Dial expects the festival to uplift and inspire the local community and provide a safe haven through a sense of family.
The whole purpose of us even doing this to bring that economic, independence and that artistic expression and a sense of community back to this space in a real way.
It's a free event for the public and takes place at Martin Luther King Jr. Community Park this Saturday from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
We hope that you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thanks for joining us.